Good afternoon. You're listening to My Conscious Dad on your hometown station, AM 1220, KHTS. I'm your host, Jasmine Urbina, here in the studio with my dad, Alex Urbina. So today we are going to talk about building up your kids. What does that mean? Are we talking about building up their confidence, building up their values? What does that mean to you?
When I talk about building up your kids, I'm talking about everything that's interpersonal. Building up their spirit, building up their confidence, their self-awareness. You want to build up your children to be powerful, competent, and confident human beings. The kind of young adults that you are proud of, that are out in society making a contribution and living a loving, passionate, purposeful life, living a life with meaning, and also discovering that they have a gift and realizing that gift is important and that they matter and they're enough and that they're out there in some way making a contribution and making a great living at it. And so in order to create those kinds of kids, I hope that you're not just sitting back, expecting that, you're going to hit the lottery and that they're just going to just manifest that way, or that they were born with a certain ability about them. If you're any sort of consciousness, then you got to be operating from the how can I create that? How can I co-create it? And can I be responsible for drawing their greatness out of them, rather than trying to put the greatness into them? And it's quite often that when you take a stop for a minute and look at our kids and you look at the way we parent our kids, you have to ask yourself, am I trying to draw the greatness out from them, or am I trying to put the greatness into them? If you look at schools, traditional schools, they teach the kids, but they're trying to put their values and morals and the information into them, like talking to them, rather than asking more questions to have the kids do some self-reflection and then realize their own answers, come up with their own truth, come up with their own morals and their own values. And that's what I want to talk about, is how do we build our kids up to get them to that next level?
So what you're talking about is kind of that idea that I could tell you something a million times, but you're not going to get it until you realize it or you experience something along those lines.
That's right. And quite often in the training rooms when I do work with teenagers, a lot of the times the parents will come up to me and they'll say like, wow, Alex, what did you do that you helped my kid realize, this certain breakthrough, when I've been trying to get them to get that breakthrough in, the last 12 years of their life. And the only thing I did different was that I gave them an opportunity for them to realize it themselves. Rather than living the illusion that they're going to listen to what I'm saying, what I do is I open up possibilities for them and create these spaces for them to realize and discover their own truth. And that's the distinction. Rather than being arrogant enough to think that what I have to say that is important to them, and they're just going to go, oh, what a great, concept. And so the only difference is that I just give them a space for them to kind of do their own self-discovery. And then when they decide it for themselves and they say it out loud, they own it. When I say it, it's just my opinion. And it's the same thing with parents. When you're talking to your kids, you can tell them 1,000 times, but not until that 1,001 time where you ask them the question and then they, out of their own mouth, articulate it back to you. And when they say it, they go, oh my God, I get it now. And then you're just rubbing your head going, oh my God, are you kidding me? Like I've been
just now you got it.
Yeah. But that's the power of you realizing that you can draw people's greatness out by asking them questions rather than trying to tell them in a million lifetimes.
I love that you said that a lot of parents are living in this illusion that their kids are listening, because that's really what it is. I think a lot of parents are thinking that we're listening to them. I mean, we are listening, but we're not taking it and implementing it ourselves until we have that realization or until we experience it. And I hate the word arrogant, but it's kind of a little bit arrogant of parents to think, like you said, that what's coming out of their mouth is gold and that we should value it and we have to listen to it, even though it probably is.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And I only use the word arrogance because sometimes we have to do certain things for shock value to wake you up. And a lot of times people will say, man, when you said the other night, when you said how arrogant of me to, expect people to do things the way I want it, that really shook me up, that really rattled me. And so I use it in a form to really emphasize that, hey, maybe it's not always the way you see it, and how arrogant of us to think like it should be. But I'm not judging you and calling you an arrogant person. I'm just using it in a term to maybe have you really look at that and go, wow, that's kind of abrupt. Let me look at that. But I love how you said that you're listening, but you're not really hearing. And there's a distinction between your kids could be listening to you because they respect you, you've taught them to listen to you or pay attention. But there's a distinction between the kids that are listening to you versus the kids that are hearing you. And the way that you get them to hear you is that you have to do some of your own growth, your own interpersonal development as a parent. You got to be evolving and learning how to communicate more effectively. And you got to kind of do some personal development work on yourself, work through some of your own fears and some of your own insecurities, get that out of the way so that it frees you up to be a more effective parent.
Right, you were saying that you can say something 1,000 times, and then when you ask a question, it now clicks for them. It's almost like, why did it take you 1,000 times to realize that you needed to reinvent yourself, or you needed to get creative with your kid? Sometimes
we're stubborn, I think, as parents, and we live in this old paradigm, like, you're supposed to listen to me because I'm your dad. And the new school kids, they're not buying that anymore. The new school kids, the millennials, the Generation Y, and then even the Generation Z that's coming up, they want to know why. And that's probably why they call them the Y generation. Like, why? Everything is why. And, back in my generation, Generation X, or the baby boomer generation, it was because I said so. Well, that's not good enough for kids anymore. They don't buy that. They still can't wrap their mind around that. They need to know why. And it takes the evolved, conscious parent to say, all right, let me sit down and let me have the patience to explain to you why. Now, if I can explain to you why and you see the value, all of a sudden a light switch goes off and you go, oh, got it. Now, from that moment forward, you're now listening to me at a higher level frequency. I got your ear. Now I'm a power of influence from you. The lazy parent just says, because I said so. That's the lazy parent tool. But the conscious parent tries to figure out how to hook their kid's ear so that they're the power of influence. Look, the kids are they're always going to be influenced by someone. If it's not you, they're being influenced by their friends. And if they're hanging around, kids that are up to no good, then that's how you have kids that are out there trying to fit in and get approved and get the goodies from all their peers, and they're making, those kinds of decisions that get them in trouble. But if you can figure out how to be the power of influence and hook your kid's ear, then they're listening to you. And that's what I want to talk about, is how do we build up our kids to get them to that next level? And I kind of wrote down a few things. The first thing is to ask open-ended questions. And I talked a little bit about that earlier. Instead of telling your kids what they should be doing or what they're doing wrong, or, hey, you should probably do it like this, get really good at taking whatever statement you want to make to them and then turning it into a question. If you can turn that into a question, then what you do is you put the burden of responsibility for coming up with an answer on whose side? Theirs. Yeah. It actually now, the point that I want to make, if I turn it into a question and I direct it towards you, it now forces you to think. It forces you to do some self-reflection. It forces you to come up with an opinion. It forces you to dig down deep and come up with, some kind of an answer. Well, when that process happens, you're going to go to two places. You're either going to draw some information from your mind, or you're going to draw some information from your spirit. And there's a good possibility that you might pull 40% from your spirit and 60% from your mind, or 70% from your spirit and 30% from your mind. But if you can start that practice where you're practicing to ask those open-ended questions and you get real good at it, you might be able to get your kids to now start drawing 70% from their spirit, 30% from their mind, and then 80% from their spirit, 20% from their mind. And when you got your kids operating and going into their spirit at a 80 or 90% rate, they're always finding their truth. They're always coming up with great answers that's leading them down this path of righteousness and creating some powerful results for themselves. I think in the beginning, starting this tactic is going to be, a little challenging. I know for me, when
being young and you would sit there and ask me and my sister questions, we would sit there for like 15 minutes quiet because we're thinking about how we're going to respond, whether it was fighting with our spirit in our brain or trying to figure out what we want to do in this situation. But a lot of the time we came up with a solution. If there was a problem, you would ask us questions about how to fix it or what's the next move. And we would sit there, for 15 minutes trying to figure it out just in silence. And it's all three of us staring at each other. And so it was.
Well, that's the early stages, the awkward stages.
Right. It was a little awkward, but at the same time, I figured out a solution on my own.
Now, when you did that, when I asked you that question and gave you that space to struggle and then find a solution, in that moment, now I come back to you and go, hey, girls, did you figure something out? And you go, yeah, Dad, we decided that A, B, C, and D. Now, as you're sharing that, you're hearing yourself say that, and you're coming to the conclusion that you're a powerful young girl. That you can make your own decisions. And so what you start doing is you start creating a new belief system, a powerful belief system that you can handle any circumstance. And the more that I do that, the more that I give you opportunities to self-reflect, come up with your own solutions, you get really good at that. Now you're 18, 19, 20 years old and problems arise or issue arises or life unfolds the way it does, and you're just dialed in. You're really conscious, aware, and you're just choosing these powerful choices that's going to create you these extraordinary results.
I definitely think having that time to reflect, even, if it was too long or whatever, it really set me up to win now. And it really instilled that confidence that when I make a decision, it's the right decision, or I know it's the right decision because I sat with it or I made it.
But even if it's not the right decision, it's your decision.
Right.
And so as a parent, I want you to start practicing learning how to make your own decisions. Early on, I knew I didn't want a group of kids, that offsprings of mine that were always coming to me all the time for every little thing. I didn't want to enable you guys into now following my lead. My intention was to create other leaders. My intention was to make you your own leader so you can think for yourself. Not be the leader of the family and always have you come like I'm the Don of the mafia. You come and kiss my hand and go, hey, Father, what should I do? That's not empowering. What's empowering is doing the work on the front end and creating a space for you to realize for yourself that you are powerful on your own and that you have a voice and your voice matters and you have your own solutions and that you can find those wherever you got to go all on your own. Now, of course, I'm going to be here to guide you and support you, but at least you're running with it. You're taking responsibility for it.
Right. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. And I kind of want to talk, a little bit about maybe some examples, like how do you ask those open-ended questions? As you were talking and kind of breaking that scenario about you and your sister, a lot of good questions in that moment that I would have asked is, okay, great, girls, how do you want to handle this? That's a powerful question, especially if you're 6 or 7, you're like, huh? What do you mean, how do I want to handle this?
Yeah, aren't you supposed to handle it?
Yeah, you're my dad. Aren't you supposed to handle it? No, you girls are competent enough. You guys are powerful enough. Why don't you sit down, spend a little time. You don't have to figure out now, but spend a little time, hint, hint, while you're cleaning your room. Think about it a little bit, talk about it, discuss it, and then I'll come back and let's see what you guys come up with.
You know what it also, I think, instilled too was it was a lot of responsibility coming up with the solution because it might not be the right one or, we didn't want to fail, but you trusted us and you said, you know what, you guys can do this, even at 6 years old. And I think that added a lot to our confidence and our self-awareness and, where we are today, really.
Now, do you think that it took a lot of patience for me to be able to go through that process?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I made a face, but I didn't say it. No, definitely. I think sometimes, I have trouble helping when I'm babysitting. I have trouble helping the kids write their letters. And I'm like, come on, you should know this. And I have to slow down and be patient and realize that they don't know what I know yet.
Yeah.
And I think.
And so for me, it took a lot of me fighting that controller style in me or the impatient part of me that I haven't mastered yet. It really brought up a lot of my own insecurities and the work that I needed to do on myself. That all came up in that moment. And I had to make a choice to say, is it is the easier route, which is to just go in and handle it. Is that going to be more effective in the long run, or can I spend an hour making this one opportunity to create some powerful distinctions in their minds where they realize that they're competent and capable of leading themselves at 6 or 7 years old? And so I chose the higher road, which was a little bit more difficult and took more challenge, and I had to put more effort into it. But I knew in the long run that if I continued to do that from time to time, that you guys would realize for yourself that you can navigate your own life, that you can be your own champion, your own leader. You can get back in the driver's seat and start taking off and be that beautiful, powerful leader that I know you to be. So asking you that question, like, how are you going to handle this? Sometimes even just saying, what are you going to do? Or how do you feel? How does it make you feel? Just getting good at asking questions as a facilitator. If you're a parent and you learn how to facilitate, that's all you're doing is you're just facilitating a process for your kids to grow. And I don't think parents give themselves permission to be a facilitator. What they end up doing is they decide in that moment that they're going to be the person that fixes it. And I hope that you're listening right now when I say that you don't have to fix your kids. It's not your responsibility, mom or dad, to fix your kids. First of all, your kids aren't broken. They're whole and complete human beings. They might have some belief systems that are getting in the way of their full potential, but they're not broken. You don't need to fix them. What you need to do is facilitate a process for them to start to remember how amazing they are. See, when you were babies, you and your sister and your brother, when you were babies, you were the most magnificent, powerful human beings you've ever been. That was at the state and a time in a moment where you were just like perfect. And you still are that at 20, 23, 25 years old. The difference is that you have a bunch of limiting beliefs and fears from your past stuck in your mind that gets a little in the way, and it clouds the truth about who you really are. And that's why I talk a lot about listen to your spirit voice. Your spirit is always reminding you how amazing you really are. Your spirit's always saying, go for it. Take a risk, go after your dream. Your mind's always telling you, no, don't do that. Because remember the last time you did that, what happened? You failed. Remember what happened? You got your heart broken. Remember what happened last time? You got hurt. So really what we're doing is we're in this inner struggle between our mind and our spirit. And as a parent, your job is to continue to remind them from their spirit how amazing they are and how capable they are. And that's your job as a parent. It's not to fix them. It's just to constantly remind them how amazing they are. But before you do that, before you can get to that level, you have to see your kids as amazing. You got to see the higher version of them. You got to see the Jasmine 10.0 rather than the Jasmine 2.3. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you can't see them as broken and then be like, oh, you're
That's
perfect.
right. If you see them as broken, you're going to speak to them as broken. You're going to speak into their brokenness. Mm-hmm. So it's really about, finding the greatness in them and realizing that they are a 10.0 and speak into that. Now, when I speak into Jasmine 10.0, guess what you do? You rise to that level. You want to be that as though I'm speaking to 10.0. You want to be that because that's how I had my realization. When I had my coach that was talking into my greatness, I was like, I want to hang around this woman because I want to see myself the way she sees me. Mm-hmm. That inspires me. And so that's what you need to do is you need to speak into their greatness so that you can inspire your own kids.
Sounds great. We'll get back to more after the break. Stay tuned for more of My Conscious Dad right here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.